And I do believe so. Thanks, Jason. So we're having the carry on discussion about core values, and you brought, so congratulations on your recent marriage. I mean, I see the smile, I see how happy you are.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, Steve.
I love what you said about one of the things that you really appreciate now, that because the question I asked you is what have you noticed between like a past relationship that may have been painful or difficult to this new one that is in flow, that you guys are connected, still in the newlywed phase, and you said that you really appreciate peace in the home, and it made me think about the fact that that was one of the things, the very last thing that happened in my long relationship that ended, that led me on this journey of self-awareness, that led me down the path of coaching, that led me down the path of looking at limiting beliefs, and all of this was a relationship that wasn't going well. It's a very painful relationship, and the very last thing that happened in the relationship is I took over a contract with 4 items on it that we would have each other's back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that
so important.
Would have peace in the home.
Yeah.
And that's the one that you just mentioned. I mean, that was something that I said that we needed to have peace in the home. That we would seek to understand each other, right? We would actually have communication and try to understand one another, and then we would do our best to try to meet those needs of the other person.
Wow.
And I took her that contract, and she said, "Can't sign it."
Just shows you where her heart was at, and she just divided by those things. Yeah.
I go, I don't know which one do you have? Which one of these do you disagree with?
Yeah. There shouldn't be a problem with any of these, but you have a problem, obviously.
I was shocked with it. Well, her response was, "Well, I only need to worry about myself." And I said, and my response was, I said, I understand that, but we're in a relationship together. And I said, this is the very base that I need to be in this relationship with you. And she said, "Can't do it." And I go, "I guess we're done then." I mean, and that's it. Within 2 weeks, everything changed. I mean, it's like it became a little bit strange. But the peace in the home. I mean, we don't have peace in the home. So we're talking about core values, and
sure.
And I really, why are core values so important to you? I mean, you led them in the men's group, you talk about them.
Yeah.
How did you make that connection to them?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about peace in the home and that core value. And I'll just tell a story a little bit about, where that became important for me. Much like you, I came from a relationship that didn't have peace in the home. So, that was very evident in my past marriage. I'm going to talk marriage first, then I'll kind of talk subsequent relationships. So in my previous marriage, I felt like I had to walk on eggshells, and I couldn't be myself. It was always appeasing the other person. It was always, this sense of the other person's the most important in this relationship. So I will do everything, even though I'm uncomfortable living in my own home. I'll do everything to make it work and to try to bring peace in the home, though the other person doesn't want peace, obviously, would go off on tangents, would be angry a lot of the time. So that relationship just deteriorated. And I think, Steve, you know, my story is there was actual harm that was going to come to me if I didn't get out of this relationship. So not just peace in the home, but, there was actual harm that I knew was on its way to me. Physical harm, emotional harm. So went through a divorce. And though that was painful, I finally had peace. When I was on my own, I finally had peace. I could control that environment, and I finally had peace. Listened to a lot of healing music, went for a lot of walks, became myself a little bit. In subsequent relationships after that, I never felt like myself. And all those trying to find the right relationship, I never really felt like I could be myself. I always felt like the other person wanted me to be something else. And so I knew I wouldn't have peace in the home. I knew I would always have to be. One example is one girl really liked tractors and trucks and all that stuff and farming. That's not me. So I would have had to find a real big interest in trucks and farming and, or, disappoint her at some point down down the line. Anyways, in this relationship, fast forwarding, this is a person that has that same priority. Just the way that she carries herself, the way she talks is just, and I knew I'd found home when I met her. That was the connection. I knew I'd found home. The connection was instantaneously. First weekend, just felt like this was my person. And it's amazing. So we have that, we have that as a priority. Peace in the home, for sure.
I was trying to remember the quote. There's a quote about meeting the woman, and something about the quote is about finding the one that, knowing right away that that's the one that you want to spend the rest of your life with. And I think that's important. There's a lot of growth that comes with that. And it's like we talk about core values. It's like the best person to help you discover who you are is somebody that you live with 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's like we discover what it is that, things that we didn't even know that we had within us. And it's a great opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And with that, I mean, one of the ideas that I have is that when you're in the right relationship, especially if you're a helper, so a helper can lose themselves within the relationship. And I'm on this journey of discovering, because I as well went through some difficult relationships, and I discovered that I had boundary issues. I discovered that I had identity issues, like self-worth issues, things like that, you can grow past those. You can actually find your identity. And it's not about looking outside, it's about looking within. Yeah. And so part of that is this whole, connecting with our empathetic side, that intuitive side, that part where we feel more. And in this process, I've discovered that, I'm on this spectrum of highly sensitive people, meaning it's 20% of the population is 1 out of 5. It just means that you have a higher response to the chemistry. So like you feel it deeper, right? Like if you're feeling a little bit anxious, you feel it in your body. You actually have that physical response. Yeah. And the good thing is it's a signal. It lets you know that something needs to change. And so when you're in a relationship and you have that feeling, right? You feel like you're less than, you try to avoid the conflict because you just don't want to feel that way. So the litmus test that I had for a good relationship is becoming a better person. And so in what ways do you feel like you're becoming a better person?
Yeah, no, that's an amazing way of putting it. When that divorce was happening, and in that time, that's when I found life coaching. And that's when I found this series of questions. I went through 3 different life coach courses, went through the materials, went for seminars and sessions, and all 3 of them dealt with core values. And so I started to look at myself and go, okay, am I living by the things that are most important to me? Am I living by the things that really deep down I know are my driving forces? And so that's where I started to learn that core values are so vitally important for us to understand. The previous conversation we just had before this, Steve, I think the assumption was that everybody knows their core values. I don't believe that.
I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, as you were talking about that, I go, well, we really ought to kind of touch base and cover what core values are. So go ahead. I mean, you do such a wonderful job of explanation.
I was in my mid 40s and I didn't know why I existed. I didn't know what my core values were. I had served and like you had said, just kind of put myself in that spot where I'd been in a serving position my whole life, that I knew what other people's values were. I knew what was important to other people, and I was well attuned to that. I was a highly sensitive person that was well attuned to that. But to myself, I let that stuff diminish. And around that time, that relationship was ending, and I found the life coaching course and life coaching courses. And I started to really look and say, what is important to me? I realized that any client that I have in front of me, that's going to be a question that they have too, that a lot of people don't know what their real core values are. And so, yeah,
I just wanted to throw out there, because, a lot of times when people hear that, so if you're on this spectrum, someone will at some point in your life will have said, oh, you're too sensitive.
Yeah, that is true.
And you
Yeah.
and you view it as a negative, but I tell you, it's not a negative. It's actually a superpower.
Yeah.
It's when it's not activated, when you're not controlling that response, it can be bad because it can lead to spiraling down into feeling bad. It can lead into a lot of different things of self-worth. But when you're activated, when you intentionally live your life and activate these, this feeling the way that you want to feel intentionally, it
Mhm.
is powerful, and it can actually influence other people. It can change the world, I do believe. So,
Yeah.
when we're talking about core values, it's like you go through the questions of what do you love, right? It's like the things that where you're in that flow state, the what is that situation that you're going through, and then you describe, okay, what were you doing? What kind of people were there? What
Yeah.
was important about that situation? And words will come up, not only words will come up for the positives, but also times when you're frustrated, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so like if somebody's late, right, they're late, and you're really, because this person's always showing up late, but being on time is important to you. It'll help determine what your core values are. And so, some of the list of core values are accountability, accuracy, achievement, being adventurous, authenticity, ambition, assertiveness, balance, belonging, boldness, calmness, carefulness, challenge, and they go on and on. And if anybody is interested in just having a deep dive discussion
Yeah.
about why you might feel stress or why you might be going through things, you do an excellent job. You've run through the core values exercise in several of the groups that I've been involved in. And so I'd say anybody watching this, reach out to Jason or reach out to myself. We're happy to take you through this process. And it's interesting because these core values change. You can take this
Yeah.
test. And actually, well, I'll tell you what, let's just we'll put a free self-guided self-guided worksheet in the link here,
Sure.
and anybody can download it. But it helps to go through it with somebody. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so you can contact either Jason or myself. But
I kind of want to leave you with this, Steve, is the core values. What I found going through the courses is that it is like the meat in the sandwich. The bottom layer of bread is your past and is the things that you've gone through. Like you said, the highs and the lows. What brought you to these highs? What did you feel? What did you experience? Who were the people there? What brought you to these lows? What were you feeling there? What do you want to avoid in your life? What do you want more of in the highs, and what do you want to avoid in your life? What are you going to run towards, and what are you going to run away from? And so that's the bread. What have you been in your life so far, and what's brought you to this point? The meat is, who are you today? What's important to you today?
mhm,
That's the meat. Who are you today? Sitting in front of me, who are you today? Core values. What's important to you? And then the top layer of the bread is, what are you going to do with that? If this is what's important to you, you're holding it all together, what are you going to do with that? What goals have you got? Where are you going to go? And I think that's, the best way of explaining why your core values are so important.
my dry humor kicked in and said, for our vegan friends, it's the tofu.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's
The impossible
but
burger.
you're right. It's connecting to those things that um with him, since I focus in on hypnotherapy, right, focusing in on the beliefs that change people's lives. There's things that we do that we never even think about, right? We
Yeah.
have this automatic behavior. Most of us are just living this automatic response. We're doing what we've always done. We're repeating the same patterns. When we're angry, we're always angry the same way, or we're angry about the same things.
Yeah.
And those are repeated patterns. We can wake up out of those if we just start asking ourselves questions, right? We can start becoming more aware of those automatic responses. And knowing your core values, it's interesting because I've noticed that there's one person that was very irritating to me because they were inauthentic, and they were ego driven, egocentric, and it was always about them. I gave him the nickname. The person's name was Tommy. I started calling him Tommy Me, because he was always showing up. I mean, it's always about him, always about him. And the idea that came to me is why does it bother me? And
Yeah.
when I did a mindfulness course, and it was, it helped me come into contact with some of these values and things. And I realized that, oh my gosh, this is an opportunity to become self-aware, to learn what it is that's irritating me, what core value that I have that was being violated. And I actually started getting excited about being triggered or being irritated, because it gave me an opportunity to improve as a person, and to release, and to have, forgiveness and release and all that stuff. So there's a lot there, and we
Yeah,
probably
there
ought to
is.
have another conversation about that another time.
For sure. Let's plan to do that. Absolutely.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, my friend. Congratulations on your wedding. You look so happy.
Oh,
Um,
thanks, Steve. It's always good to connect with you again. And yeah, we'll carry this conversation on a few more times, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for sharing.